All right, welcome everyone to the first ever Solve Summer Academy. My name is Jane Zanzig. I was a data science for social good fellow in Chicago in 2015 and stayed working with the program for 2 years afterwards. Nowadays, in my day job, I'm a data scientist at IDEO, a design and innovation consulting firm, but I just can't seem to stay away from DSSG. I feel very strongly about the work and about the people and try to stay involved however I can. So you'll see me around this summer helping to put on this Summer Solved Academy series, which we're hoping will bring this community together, start some conversations, and help us all learn together how this Solve platform can work. I came to DSSG straight out of grad school and found it really inspiring that I was able to apply my technical skills in a way that felt valuable. And when I say valuable, I don't mean necessarily money, but making an actual difference. And that really kind of opened up my world and my brain and taught me a lot. But more than anything, I always say the best part about the experience is the community and the people. Many of my favorite people on earth I know through DSSG, and you'll get to meet some of them today. Harem, still one of my best friends. Raid, an amazing mentor, always willing to go so far this way to help you however you can, and also make fun of you whenever you get too full of yourself. And Paul was the project manager for my team the first summer, and ever since then, I've been, trying to live life more like Paul, and still to this day find myself thinking like, what would Paul do in lots of situations? You'll also meet Andrew and Jessica and Catherine. I'm just getting to know them this year, but one thing that all these people have in common is this work really, I think, attracts a passionate and smart and idealistic group of people who have a common goal to make a difference, and that's really powerful. So you'll get to meet and hear from all those people. And now we're excited to open this up to an even broader community and welcome all of you in. We got a lot of quality content planned for you today. First, we're going to hear from Raid, the mastermind behind this entire movement. And he'll tell you a little bit about the history of data science for social good and how Solve kind of was born out of that. Then Andrew will tell you a bit about Solve and its three main elements, including the platform itself and the resources provided therein, the community members, and of course the projects that are kind of the bread and butter. And then you'll hear from some of the teams who are working on two of the initial Solve projects, the City of Dallas and Child Poverty Action Lab and Illinois Legal Aid, about challenges they're tackling. And then you'll hear from Jessica with some in-depth tactical instructions on how you can get involved today. So a few just logistical items. We're hoping to save some time at the very end for a live Q&A, but you don't need to wait until the end to ask questions. There's a chat bar on the right-hand side if you want to just make comments and talk to each other throughout. And if you have questions for the presenters about the content or about Solve in general, you can put those in the Q&A and we'll address them throughout. If you have not yet joined the Slack channel, we have a link in the chat as well to join that. And that's where we can keep the conversation going and you can connect with the community and reach out to us with questions. In the Slack channel, the Summer Academy channel in the Slack group is connected to the big marker. So if you write in the chat here, it will show up in Slack and vice versa. So that should be everything we need to cover. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Raid.
Okay, thank you, Jane. This is so good to have everybody back here. This has been a wonderful team getting us to this point. Jane and Harem coming back, and Paul, Andrew, Jessica, Catherine, and then Jesse, who's not here, but he's been kind of doing all the back end work of building. And actually, this started about a year and a half ago. We had Alberto and Lisa and Mohawk and Elena to thank for kind of getting us started. But a lot of you are kind of coming in knowing what DSSG is, Data Science for Social Good, and what we've been doing for the past 7-something years, right? We've been running programs, fellowship programs to kind of connect aspiring data scientists, sort of grad students from different disciplines to problems with social good, and training them how to do that. We've done a lot of projects in schools to help them figure out how to prioritize students at risk of not graduating on time who need extra support work with public health agencies to understand what children are at risk of lead poisoning and trying to prevent that, work with police departments, depressingly relevant all the time on what officers are at risk of doing things they shouldn't be doing and trying to intervene early, work with unemployment agencies on helping them understand who are at risk of unemployment and how to connect them with training programs, reducing recidivism through mental health outreach. And so what we've been really successful at with a lot of support from everyone here is going deep into a small number of projects with a small number of partner organizations. At the same time, what's been happening over the last many years is we've been getting requests from countless of nonprofits and governments who have data needs, who have analytical needs, and don't have resources and don't have the skills and the capacity to tackle them. At the same time, we've been getting requests from people who want to volunteer. They don't have 3 months to work with us. They don't have the capacity to come and spend a month, 6 months full time, but they're interested in helping part time, a few hours here and there, weekends, maybe a week long. And what we've found is sort of these two pieces, these organizations who need help and the people who are willing to offer help. We can't really just put them together and hope that magic happens, right? A lot of you on this webinar have probably offered nonprofits help. A lot of you who are from nonprofits and governments have had requests from people like us saying, "Hey, how can we help?" Except that it's not as simple as that, right? It's you might not have the resources to coordinate the overhead in volunteer efforts. You might not know how much you can rely on them because they're volunteers. But the volunteers may also not know how to translate the problems you're facing into technical problems or to break them up into sort of doable chunks. And the result sort of ends up being frustration on both sides. I've been there personally before I was doing this DSSG thing, where I would offer something to a nonprofit and they would say, "Yeah, we're okay right now," or "We don't really know what to give you as a volunteer." And that's where sort of Solve started, is thinking about what we've learned by doing a lot of these deep, small number of deep projects. We learned sort of how to scope projects really well. What does it take to build teams, and what does it take to connect these organizations and the full-time teams together and manage that project effectively so that it results in positive impact. And we wanted to sort of see how would this scale to a larger number of organizations that we ourselves could help and a larger number of volunteers that we ourselves could coordinate and manage. And that's where Solve was born. And so that's kind of our hope, is that the organizations that are coming on board that you're going to hear about are kind of our pilot partners. They're helping us test out the platform, and the volunteers that are coming in are also our pilot volunteers. And the idea is to kind of grow this community that's already passionate about using data and all the other buzzwords for social good, and connect them to organizations that could turn that passion into impact. So I'm really excited about hearing from the organizations that are coming on board, and hearing from the volunteers about what's motivating them. And I'm also looking forward to kind of getting feedback on what we're doing, and all of you joining us as we start. So thanks for being here. I'm going to pass it on to Andrew now, who's going to go deeper into what the Solve platform is and how to get started.
Thanks, Raid. I'm just going to turn on my camera there so everyone can see me. Excellent. So as Raid said, my name is Andrew. I've been a little bit active in the Slack channel, so I've interacted with some of you. So this is a chance to put a face to a Slack username. But my background with DSSG started in 2018 when I was a fellow in Lisbon, Portugal. And then I stayed on as a researcher, kind of affiliated with DSSG, doing that type of research. And now for the summer, I'm a project manager for the Solve program that we're running this summer. So you'll be hearing more from me and some of the other names that we're introducing today. So as Raid said, the purpose of Solve is to bring together social good organizations and also these groups of data science volunteers to help them solve important data-related challenges that the organizations are facing, and importantly, how they benefit the beneficiaries of those social good organizations. And it was kind of born out of having these two components. On the one hand, you have the volunteers who are members of the Solve community that are expressing a willingness to help and have a capacity to volunteer, and also various skill sets, whether they be technical skill sets, they're a project manager, or maybe experts in the social sciences. And then the idea is Solve for Good is this platform and this program that can connect them to the social good organizations who have this need for help on important data-related challenges. And we're going to hear specifically from some of these programs a little bit later. But I want to talk about what is Solve for Good when we think about this. The way that we think about this is we break it down into 3 different pillars. So the first pillar is the platform, which is the Solve for Good website itself. Feel free to go explore www.solveforgood.org, and you'll kind of get a step-by-step or introduction to that platform from Jessica later in this presentation. And this is what really houses all of the Solve challenges and projects and problems. And then we also have the community pillar, which is made up by Solve volunteers, which may be some of you on this call. We also have past DSSG alumni, the different chapters, friends of DSSG, the partner organizations that we work with, and really just anyone who's interested in being a part of this and being a part of this mission. And then lastly, we have the resources, which are ways that we try and engage the community and also help the community grow and learn. And so one of the examples of this is the Solve Summer Academy that you're participating in right now that we're running this summer. And there's some other ones that I'll speak about in a minute. But really, it's these 3 things is the idea that come together and that we believe are going to be what makes this project, the Solve for Good, so impactful. So let's just talk about a few of these in a little more detail. So first, I'd like to talk about the challenges themselves, as Jane said, really the bread and butter of Solve for Good. And the way that it's set up right now is really to help solve with any data-related challenge that any organization might be encountering. And this could really range from something as simple as geocoding or location tagging a data set that takes, one data science volunteer who has a free afternoon, only a couple hours to complete. But it could be something more involved, like creating data visualizations and dashboards that takes a small team of data scientists, or maybe something like building a predictive model, which takes a couple of data scientists together, maybe a volunteer project manager or a volunteer social scientist that has some expertise in that space. And they can really range from just being a handful of hours to something that maybe a team of volunteers is working on for 6 to 8 weeks. One of the things that is important and that I want to emphasize here is that you should post your data-related problem or challenge to the Solve platform, even if you're not sure it's a good fit. We're still kind of growing and evolving Solve and trying to figure out what projects are a good fit. But more importantly, one of the first stages of any project is what we call the project scoping phase. Some project scoping is a keyword you'll hear us throw around a lot at DSSG. And this is really where we find out, where we talk to the organizations one-on-one and help understand, what's the data that they have, what is the analysis that can be done, and more importantly, what are the actions that we can actually take from that. And so we really work with organizations to try and figure that out. On the platform side, we also have the website. As Ray mentioned, a lot of work has been done by Jesse London on this, making this beautiful website. And so you can go there at www.solveforgood.org and kind of explore it a little bit. And Jessica will take us through that at the end. But what I would like to bring your attention to right now is the resources tab button that's at the very top of the page. And so this resources section right now is evolving. It's a work in progress where you can expect updates, maybe even weekly in the coming weeks in the summer. And the idea is that here we're going to post a lot of the different resources that come out of DSSG to help you, the volunteers or members from the community, grow and learn. So just to pull a couple of examples. So on the left is something developed called the Data Science Project Scoping Worksheet. And the idea is if by following this worksheet, you can answer a lot of those important questions that come up in this project scoping phase. Things like what is the data that's available? What would be the ideal data? And then thinking about, okay, what kind of analyses can we actually run? And then what actions do these analyses inform? And how can that help the beneficiaries in the social good organization? And then on the right, we have an example of what's known as the Hitchhiker's Guide to Data Science for Social Good. And this is an open source curriculum that's been developed over the past 8 or 9 years of the program that is kind of it takes you through all the way from importing your data into a project to carrying out some of these analysis. And it's like an in-depth open source curriculum. And we also have, of course, the Solve for Good Summer Academy. So right now we have June 18th. We're in the overview of Solve for Good. next week, or in 2 weeks rather, on July 2nd, we have the ever important project scoping workshop, which I think is going to be super awesome and led by Raid, and we'll have a partner there doing some interactive exercises. And then the rest of the webinars, the idea here is that we're trying to take you through the life cycle of a project. So we'll go all the way from project scoping to building out whatever the data science solution is and trying to match it to the organization's needs, all the way to delivering the solution and implementing it in such a way that it can really make an impact. And this kind of sums up what we're trying to do with the resource section. And then lastly, and one of the most fundamental and important, is the community of Solve for Good. And the best way right now to get involved with the community is to join the Solve for Good Slack channel. This is where we really have been pushing out a lot of the communications. So you'll see announcements from myself and some of the other faces that you're seeing here today. And also, when you join, feel free to introduce yourself and interact with other people in the community and see what kinds of other interesting things people are working on. And maybe you can find together, some projects that on Solve that would be a good fit. And just to talk about that a little bit more, I'd like to introduce Harem Naveed, she's one of the community managers, and she's going to talk a little bit about her experience as a community manager.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Andrew, for such a great walkthrough through Solve, and Raid and Jane for walking us through what Solve is and kind of the ethos of DSSG. My name is Harem. I'm a community manager with the Solve for Good Summer Academy, and I was a DSSG fellow in 2016. And then I spent some time at the Center for Data Science and Public Policy at the University of Chicago, working with Raid, working and living with Jane. And, I had a really great time there. And in my time at the center, I worked on the early intervention system in partnership with police departments that Raid mentioned earlier. So I really got to see end to end, from project scoping all the way through to deployment, how some of these big projects get done. But as Raid mentioned, there were so many organizations coming in with projects that we wanted to assist with and not really having the resources or the ability to connect people. So I'm really excited to be involved with Solve for Good in that respect. Since I left the center at U Chicago, I work at Munich Re, which is a reinsurance firm, which, if you don't know what that is, it's just insurance for insurance companies. But I try to stay involved with the fellowship or whatever plans Raid is coming up with. So this summer, you'll see me kind of lurking about, helping out with onboarding, addressing any questions you have, and really trying to help everyone get on board to the platform and addressing any questions, concerns. And I'm based in Toronto, so if anyone is local here, we can also hang out in person once social distancing is relaxed. And I think next I'll pass it on to Paul to give his introduction.
So I'll quickly, to follow on Harem, what's the reason that we're actually doing this today is to launch Solve for Good, which you've heard a little bit about. I've been involved with data science for social good for a couple of years now, and it's been an incredible experience to be able to do some of the work with, unfortunately, a too small group of people, just because we couldn't. And I think Solve is trying to, with Solve for Good, we're trying to find ways to bring all of you in, maybe to give you a bit of a sense or a flavor of some of the work that at least I've been involved with, we've been trying to do more and more of through Data Science for Social Good Summer Fellowship, has been with all sorts of different project partners, from small local city governments, like working with Cincinnati. I have very fond memories going down to Cincinnati with the team to try and figure out how we could help the local emergency medical services better respond to calls that were going on in the city. But also, in the past, we worked with a little bit larger organizations like national governments. We went down to Mexico to help them figure out how they could improve citizen engagement and help basically make sure that once citizens were interacting with the national government, they got inquiries and basically responses from the right people as soon as possible. And we even worked with some of the global organizations like the World Economic Forum in trying to help them figure out problems we all should care about, like, for example, predicting illegal fishing and how we should or could potentially use data science to help crack that problem. So, in short, we've done a lot of these projects in the past and are really now looking for a way to make it easier for you as volunteers and as organizations spending all of your time doing social good to connect and find ways to solve more problems than we were ever able to do before. So with that, I'm extremely excited to finally get this initiative launched.